Colorado had one of the worst offensive lines in college football last season, and now they're trying to fix it, and this guy could be a key part of it.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Borber. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so I can keep my job. Joining me today is one of the best in the business, Eric Cain of Locked On Vols and Vols Quest over at On3. Eric, I appreciate you hopping on and telling us a little bit about you. I guess we pulled off a trade, if you will. It's not as high profile as the Nico for Joey trade, but we did kind of pull off a trade over here in Boulder and in Tennessee.
But I think this one makes more sense for Tennessee, right? I mean, Spencer McLaughlin, Locked On College Football, has told me the same joke 5 times. I don't think he realizes he has, but it was like, did Tennessee get a future second rounder in that trade? No. Well, they got gypped, with the Nico for Joey Aguilar. But this one, you swap 2 and Larry Johnson, John Slaughter, and you get Colton Hood. I think it makes more sense, at least for Tennessee's sake. Yeah.
I think I feel like Colorado kind of got the Anthony Davis end of the trade, if you will, right? Where it's not like the super big headliner, but still someone who could be a really key contributor. And we're going to get to that person right now in Larry Johnson III. First of all, let me give my really expertise football-y take on the guy. He's huge, big fella, right? Yeah. 6'7", 350. And I think that's sort of been a trend with Colorado's offensive linemen via the portal, right? They've gone after SEC and Big Ten guys with experience, and they've gone after size because I think it was Coach Prime's first year, Deion's first year, the average size for the offensive line was, I don't think there were 300 pounds plus, right? I think it was like 290-ish, and Shedeur Sanders was sacked 94 times in 2 years. So I think we saw how that works out, and now that he's no longer there and able to be the saving grace for this team, they need a solution at offensive line, and the only position that is locked up is left tackle. So we're going to slide on over to right tackle where Larry Johnson III comes into play. Give me your sort of breakdown of like what he provided for the Vols, and I won't say why it didn't work out, but why he was in the portal, if you will.
Well, first, if you allow me just to talk about the stature of Larry Johnson, really impressive kid. So he's been with Tennessee, I think 3 seasons. I could be mistaken. Years blend in, and he's a guy that didn't play an awful lot, but he's been on campus for a while, 2 to 3 years, 3 years, I believe. And when Tennessee got him from the junior college ranks, and he was 6'7", like 355, whatever it was. He might have been even bigger. He's still a big guy. I think he's still around 350, 345, 6'7", obviously, but his body has changed. He went from a complete developmental afterthought, unless that guy works on himself, he will never see the field ever, okay, to this past year. He was not Tennessee's swingman. He was Tennessee's 4th offensive tackle, but in big situations at times, he stepped up, and Tennessee felt like they could roll with it. I mean, Tennessee was on the road at Oklahoma early in the season, monumental game, Josh Heupel going home, all that and more, and Tennessee's 2 offensive tackles were hurt, and so Tennessee was rolling with tackles 3 and 4, and the 3rd offensive tackle is a swingman, Dane Davis. He played a lot, but Larry Johnson, really that was his first big-time action, and he played 41 snaps on the road for Tennessee to get a big-time SEC win early in the season. I mean, that was monumental for Tennessee and obviously monumental for the growth and development of Larry Johnson. So he has really transformed his body. He took to the scheme. He was a good teammate, and he worked on himself the past couple of years to give himself a chance. And he was entering, this season, very similar situation. Jordan Seaton, who Tennessee was very much after, 2 cycles ago to bring to Knoxville. They missed out on him. They got David Sanders, who was the Jordan Seaton of this year's class. As you very well know, resources, hype, all that and more, dude's going to play, okay? The plan was for Larry Johnson and David Sanders to kind of split right tackle up, at least in the beginning of the season, and then, David Sanders to take over that and run with it. Larry Johnson essentially, I would assume, probably is like, man, I want to start. I want to be a dude, so I'm going to go somewhere else, and you can't blame him in that regard. So he was in position to play this year for Tennessee, to have a role. I think Tennessee was confident in his abilities and felt comfortable with him, but essentially wanting to be the guy, wanting to get everyday reps, and wanting to prove that he was a full-blown starter, not just a part-time starter. And I think that's why he left, and he ended up in Colorado.
Yeah, and I think the David Sanders point is a really important one because it is very comparable to Jordan Seaton, where it's like you invest so much, and I don't think Colorado threw out the same amount of NIL money, but you invest so much. Tennessee, I think it was a few million, if I'm not mistaken. Do you have the number off the top of the head? Where
I don't, but it was a lot.
Rumored number. Okay, it was a lot, right? It was in the million range.
It's probably not as much as everybody thinks, but it's still a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you invest something like that, and Colorado did the same thing when they got Jordan Seaton, it was like, hey, we got this really good offensive tackle, 5-star offensive tackle, best in the class. We're not going to let him sit the bench, right? We're going to figure out a way for him to get on the field, whether it's at left tackle, right tackle. And so it makes sense that Larry sort of read the writing on the wall, or at least the presumed writing on the wall. I don't want to speak for him, but David Sanders, like I think everyone knows across college football, when there is a 5-star in the mix, it is like, okay, it's only a matter of time before that guy gets an opportunity. I think I was talking to Brian Smith, our Locked On Portal guy, about Hakeem Williams, because Colorado just landed him, 5-star wide receiver from Florida State. I was like, there's not a single person in sports that gets more chances than a 5-star recruit, right? Because everyone thinks they could be the person that brings out the 5-star rating of them. So Larry Johnson in Boulder will have a chance to start. I think he'll be in we'll call it a 4-man battle for the right tackle spot. What do you think he brings to the table, right? You talked about the SEC experience, the size. What else does he bring to the table for a Colorado offensive line that was probably the worst in college football?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously strength, just the big physical nature of him. But again, changing his body, reforming it a little bit. He still weighs what he does, but he looks a lot better. I mean, you walk over there to spring practice, you're like, oh man, like you can tell that, strength conditioning, nutrition, he might weigh the same, but he doesn't look the same. And that's a good thing. So I think from a physical stature, things you were talking about earlier, brute strength, he's a strong guy. I think his feet have gotten better. And again, I'm not going to sit here and act like he played a ton in the SEC. He didn't. He appeared in 5 games last year. The Oklahoma game was the headliner, as I mentioned. Huge game for him. Outside of that was game number 4 of the year. He played in one other game all season long, and it was a non-conference, November game against UTEP. He played against NC State a little bit, 6 snaps. Played in non-conference games against UTC, Kent State. So there's not a lot of experience there. Mm-hmm. But he is strong. His footwork has gotten so much better. Versatility. I know you're saying he's in a 4-man battle for right tackle. He's played some left tackle as well. So he knows both sides, and he's been in some different schemes, here, not just in Tennessee, but in junior college as well. So there's a bit of experience, kind of the old man in the room that knows how to go about handle his business. I think more than anything, Colorado is getting a guy that has a lot to prove for himself, wants to prove it. He's motivated, and I think a change of scenery in a new situation for him based off the little bit of run that he got last year to give him some confidence is going to give him a whole lot of said confidence going into fall camp for you guys.
Yeah, and I think Colorado needs that, right? I think I say this all the time to my listeners and viewers, which we appreciate you guys dearly, of course. Colorado does not have Shedeur Sanders, which ignore the NFL draft slide. He was one of the better quarterbacks in college football last year. They lost 3 NFL wide receivers, the most drafted in college football. So there's a lot of new pieces, right? They've never had a run game under Deion Sanders. Eric, you want to do a fun game real quick where I ask you a really random question you shouldn't know the answer to?
Let's play.
How many 100-yard rushers has Deion Sanders had at Colorado, like in a game?
He's been there, 3 years?
And then subtract it. He's been there for 2 seasons, excuse me. And then subtract your guess by like 7.
I'll say 2.
0. So Colorado has not had a 100-yard rusher yet. They came close, 94 yards one time. And the run game is going to be huge this year, right? They brought in Marshall Faulk to coach the running backs. They bring in multiple. They brought in Kalen Taylor from Incarnate Word, the running back. They have Dallin Hayden running it back from Ohio State.
Hayden, that's a name. Hey, once upon a time, Tennessee legacy. His father played Aaron Hayden at Tennessee. Oh. Tennessee wanted him, went to Ohio State. Yeah. Tennessee might get him in the transfer portal, goes to Colorado. Big fan of Dallin Hayden, so hopefully he turns out well for you guys.
Yeah, he had a nice spring game. I do think that Pat Shurmur is kind of like not on the hot seat, but Deion Sanders has shown that he wants his offense coordinators to produce results. And running the football is going to be a big deal. So if Larry Johnson can come in, protect the quarterback a little bit, help get that forward push, because, I mean, averaging 60 yards per game in the run game will not get it done by any means. I think he has opportunity. And I think with how open this job is, he's going to get plenty of opportunities, right? Even if it's as the swing man, even if it's as like Jordan Seaton starting at left tackle and Kevin Borba starting at right tackle. Larry Johnson can come in there X amount of plays and fill in. So I think Larry Johnson of the 2 Tennessee transfers has a lot of potential. We're going to get to the next guy because he's also tied up in a very weird position battle because one safety spot I think is claimed. The other safety spot is completely up for grabs, and that's where John Slaughter comes to the mix. But first, we're going to take a quick break. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Game Time. If you were attending an event like the NBA playoffs, there's no better way to get tickets than Game Time. The intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their minds. It's a kind of atmosphere and must-see experience you'll want. And this year's matchup is already delivering. If you want in, Game Time makes it fast and easy to get the seats, even for the biggest playoff games. Price on the app actually dropped closer to tip-off, and with killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fees, Game Time is a total game changer. I just went to a Matt Rife comedy event the other day, really funny, and we got our tickets via Game Time. We were about 50 feet away from the guy. Great seats, great deals on Game Time, and we didn't have to worry about those last-minute price raises where it's like, okay, we're going to the cart, and all of a sudden it's $100 more. So make sure you head over to Game Time, take the guesswork out of buying tickets, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. It's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. I'm Kevin Borba. He's Eric Cain. We're talking about the 2 Tennessee Volunteers that the Buffs landed in the portal. They actually landed them within like an hour of each other, if I'm not mistaken. Colorado landed like 3 transfers within an hour. It's like a whole thing. Everyone was really excited. And I think there's a lot to be excited about when it comes to John Slaughter, because I don't think he's reached his potential yet. I think that's a fair assessment. But with how open Colorado's secondary is, they lost both starting safeties. They lost a corner to you guys, of course. And so there's a lot of open spots, if you will. And John Slaughter, to me, if he goes in, puts his head down, works, could probably earn a bit of a role. So talk to me about what you saw from John Slaughter in his limited, and I say limited because he didn't play that much time in Knoxville.
Yeah, John Slaughter, more or less, I remember, when Tennessee recruited him, I covered that recruitment, seeing him play special teams. Because, again, like you said, he didn't have a big role on, Tennessee's defensive backfield, Tennessee's defense. He's a guy that Tennessee had a 4-man rotation at safety last year. The fifth was a true freshman, didn't play an awful lot, but he was clearly probably the next guy to go in. And then I would say there was John Slaughter. So, he was buried last year. And, Andre Turrentine, a veteran. Will Brooks had a cup of coffee with the Kansas City Chiefs as an undrafted free agent. Jacoby Thomas, who actually left Tennessee, he's at Florida State. Christian Charles, who left Tennessee, is at Virginia. There's a lot of veterans in the room, don't get me wrong, so he was kind of buried. But I'm intrigued to see kind of what he turns out to be. This is a guy that Tennessee very much wanted in terms of recruiting. From the state of Mississippi, had him on campus several different times. It was in the same recruiting class as Nico Iamaleava. They were very close. I remember Tennessee has this event, which is actually coming up here in the next week or so. It's like a Memorial Day recruiting event. They call it the 865 Live, and he gave Tennessee his commit that day. It was a solid commit, and then ended up going public a couple days later. But that was a big win for Tennessee. Tennessee wanted him, and just in his first 2 years, and who's to say he wouldn't materialize in year 3 and 4? But his first 2 years, he just kind of was buried and didn't have a role. He did play special teams, was on all the special teams units, kickoff return, punt return, all that. All in parts was a good teammate. 195, about 6'1.5", 6'2". I think there's a lot of athletic ability there. It's just unproven. We don't know. And again, like Larry Johnson, maybe a change of scenery changes everything for a guy like John Slaughter, but I do think there's some ability there.
Yeah, and I think working with Deion Sanders, obviously the best defensive back to ever do it. And then they also have Robert Livingston, the defensive coordinator, who he was working with the Bengals for, I think, over a decade as their safeties coach. So he's going to get a lot of hands-on coaching. He's going to be coached by 2 of the better, I guess, if you're a defensive back and you could pick a combination in college football, I would say it's probably one of the better combinations of coach/defensive coordinator. So he will have an opportunity to work. And worst case scenario, he comes in, provides depth, and if he plays on special teams for Colorado and is an impact player, because there is such a thing, and I think people kind of look down on special teams, but you don't recognize special teams until you have a bad one, right? Mm-hmm. Until your special teams until your coverage team can't cover, until your punt return team can't return punts or whatever it is, you don't notice how important they are. So it's kind of like a kicker, right? Where it's like, you don't notice your kicker until he sucks.
Or an offensive lineman when he jumps off sides or holds or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So I think John Slaughter probably has the potential to work his way into this rotation. I think for those of you at home, Tafik Bayer, the USF transfer, I feel like he probably locked up that one of the safety jobs. And so there's guys like Carter Stottmeyer, Terrence Love, who we talked about, was locked on Auburn's host, Zach Blackerby, and now John Slaughter. They'll all be vying for that other safety spot. And there's probably more guys in the mix, right? I think the way Colorado does things, when you bring in so many transfers and you bring in a handful in the spring football isn't necessarily going to decide battles, but it'll help, I guess, pole position, if you will, where it's like, okay, this guy's in the front, this guy's here. And so the first couple of weeks of fall camp and summer camp, if you will, is going to be a big week or a big couple of weeks for John Slaughter, right? Because would you mind attesting to this? You don't have to sort of talk about the Colorado angle, but just college football in general. When summer rolls around and fall camp rolls around, there's time, but it's not an infinite amount of time like spring ball where it's like, okay, I have a month and a half to prove myself. It's like I have 2 weeks. So talk to me about how quickly things progress in that fall/summer period.
Yeah, I mean, it's that first fall camp scrimmage. And you know, I played D2 ball, Uncle Rico status. Let me go back and talk about that. But it was we called it moving day. Like every single year in spring and or fall camp, any type of camp setting, that first scrimmage, inter-squad scrimmage, you come back in, you watch the tape, you look at the board, and it's like, oh, the depth chart's rearranged. Okay, it's called moving day. So that's kind of when you're there. And typically you practice for about a week, maybe a week and some change. You have that scrimmage, and then you go. So it wouldn't shock me at all from Colorado's angle if John Slaughter comes in and he's the third or fourth safety, or Larry Johnson is second string, right tackle to begin things off. You do that scrimmage, see what you got, and then you have some moving days because, again, you got some time, but to your point, you don't have months and months of time. You don't have a summer break to continue to sit in the film room and talk with the coaches and a fall camp to look forward to. I mean, it is go time at the end of the month whenever fall camp starts. So typically, at least from the Tennessee angle and in my experiences, it's you come in, install, indie, rep, all that and more, do the scrimmage, and you go to that first scrimmage, and it's like, oh, this guy's not going to play a lot. This guy's not going to, but he's a senior, and it's okay. He's leading the group and all that. Then you come back and reset, and then you really get to work. So wouldn't shock me at all if both those guys, specifically John Slaughter, because Larry Johnson's going to be fighting for a starting job. John Slaughter, again, you would know more than me. I would assume is in that conversation too, but more of a pressing need on the offensive side than defensive side. But both those guys will probably move up the ranks a little bit after that first scrimmage.
Yeah, it moves quick over there, right? As soon as that scrimmage happens, it's on to Colorado's playing Georgia Tech, I think, on a Friday night.
Yeah.
I think it's a standalone game. It's one of those early season games where you look at the slate and go, oof, okay, I guess I'm watching this game, because that Colorado-Georgia Tech game is going to be interesting. And I think both of these guys will have an opportunity to at least prove themselves, right? I think Colorado has prided themselves on giving everyone an opportunity. Last year, their starting running back for the first, I would say, couple games was a walk-on, right? They will give you an opportunity if they feel like you've earned it. So both these guys have a huge chance to make a bigger impact than they did in Knoxville. Eric, I appreciate you hopping on. Tell the people where they could find you, because apparently we'll keep crossing paths and trading players somewhere down the road.
Yeah, I mean, if you have any need to know anything about Tennessee football, you want to go make fun of something happening with Tennessee football, whatever it is, I will gladly welcome you to the show, Locked On Vols, at _Cainer on Twitter as well, free and available wherever you get your podcast. So appreciate you guys. Best of luck to these guys. I enjoyed covering John Slaughter's recruitment. I remember when Tennessee got the commitment from Larry Johnson. I didn't cover his recruitment much, but the night that he committed, I talked to him. He was super excited, and both these guys just came to work, didn't say an awful lot, and looking for new opportunities, and I hope they find a lot of greener pastures there with the Buffs.
Yeah, and there's a rumor that if you comment Nico under every one of Eric's videos, he will like and respond to them. That's the rumor. I don't know. You guys should go test it out.
It's a buzzword right now, so come on. It's not going to hurt the show at all.
Right. Go test it out. Every time you comment Nico, an angel gets its wings, is what I was told. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Colorado's newest high school recruiting edition. They're actually their first of the 2026 recruiting class. Excuse me. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at WayFair. The days are getting longer, the weather is warming up, and people are spending more time outside, which means it's the perfect time to refresh your outdoor space. Whether you're working with a big backyard or a small balcony, WayFair has everything you need to make it feel more like you. Get your vibe, catch your vibe, right? WayFair's massive selection of outdoor essentials makes it easy to transform any space into your ideal summer setup. From comfy conversation sets to sleek dining tables and outdoor decor, they've got it all, and at prices that fit your budget. I love the mix of styles that they offer. They make it super easy to find pieces that match my vibe, right? I feel like I have a unique vibe. I feel like me and my fiance are trying to figure out what our future home's identity is going to be. And WayFair has all the options, so it makes it a lot easier. So shop a huge selection of outdoor furniture this summer. Get outside with WayFair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. WayFair, every style, every home. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever each podcast, so make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. Let's talk about Colorado's first commit of the 2026 class. His name is Gavin Mueller, 3-star, 4-star tight end. Most places have him as a 3-star. I think Rivals has him as a 4. But I do think he is a sign of things to come for Colorado, at least in times moving forward, right? You just look at what Colorado's gotten from the tight end position, and it's not much, right? You just look at all of the people that they've brought in years past. They've had Savell Smalls, a former 5-star edge rusher, who's, I think he gave it a good effort, right? I think he has athleticism. I think he has traits that make him an attractive athlete at that position. That being said, I don't think he's the right answer. And so when I look at Colorado's tight end room, and I think Scott Proctor pointed this out on X, you just sort of look at what Colorado's been working with in the past couple of years, and then you look at what they're starting to do, right? So year one, it was Mikey Harrison, who was like a tweener wide receiver, played tight end, but wasn't a blocking tight end, wasn't really tight end size. Last year was Savell Smalls and Sam Hart. Neither of them are really able to make an impact. And honestly, of all the years to have a rough tight end situation, last year was the year, because you know what? You had 3 NFL wide receivers running around. So not a bad deal. But you look at what they've done since. They add Zach Atkins, who is at one point the number 1 tight end in the portal, 6'4", 240. They have Charlie Williams, who's 6'4", 245. Brady Kopitz, 6'4", 270. Corbin Lazier, 6'5", 250. Zane D'Souza, 6'6", 255. And Gavin Mueller, 6'6", 250 as a high school senior, which means he'll probably get a little bit bigger once he gets to Boulder and fills out even more. Big-bodied guy who has the skills to play wide receiver. He does it for his high school over at Wheaton, St. Francis, but inline tight end who is very physical, right? And I think that really helps Colorado, because they need someone who could be a pass catcher, but also use their physicality to help out in the run game. Because the thing about being a tight end is you're responsible for making an impact in the passing game, but you're also responsible for being a key part of the run game. And Colorado has struggled dramatically to run the football the past couple of years. I talked about it on the past couple segments and even the past couple episodes with DeKalen Taylor, where they haven't had a 100-yard rusher yet. The best running back, I guess you could say, has rushed for less than 400 yards in the Coach Prime era. They have not had success at the running back position. So when you consider all that they struggle with on offense, which is blocking, the run game, getting production from tight ends, this is where a guy like Gavin Mueller comes into play. And he had a slew of offers. Although he was a 3-star, he picked Colorado over LSU, Wisconsin, Cincinnati. Like, he had big programs coming after him, right? There was Kentucky was after him. Notre Dame had an offer in there. Texas A&M, West Virginia, they all offered him, and he picked Colorado. And so if you're a Colorado fan, I think this is a sign of they're going to start using tight ends more. I don't think they're going to be throwing out four receivers, 5 receivers all the time as much. And I think they're going to start trying to be more physical. And while being physical isn't always the sexy style of play, it wins games, right? Ohio State, extremely physical last year. They had 2 physical running backs. They had a physical offensive line. Their quarterback was physical. Notre Dame, their bread and butter was being physical, right? They ran the ball through people's faces. Riley Leonard was a human battering ram, right? Their running backs, Jeremiah Love, human battering ram. Like, they've had good tight ends in the past. Michael Mayer, human, just beast of a person, right? Huge, physical. Like, obviously he wasn't on that Notre Dame team, but it just reminds me of, like, the teams that we're seeing have success are the teams that are able to be physical against other teams and find that success. And so I think Colorado, they're getting bigger on the offense line. They're bringing in more tight ends who have ball skills, but are also physical and large in size. It tells me that this team is short of changing its identity from like a fast finesse team to like, hey, we are trying to be a physical team moving forward. So I love to see how that works out for the Buffs. I think it could help them, and I also think it can make up for some of the huge departures they had this offseason. So appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Buffs, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Hope all of you guys have a great weekend, and I will see you on Monday.